Okay, let's get it started then. So once again, this is today's event about UI design. I'm interviewing Michael Richter, who is one of our UI design graduates based in Munich, Germany. Today we're going to be talking about Michael's experience of transitioning from graphic design into UI design, as well as his job hunt during the Corona pandemic. This is a question that we've been asked by lots of prospective students, and also people who are searching for jobs at the moment. You know, how do you go about searching for a job during the current crisis? We recently released an article with Mike, our head of career services, which had some tips and tricks in, but we thought it would be great to have a webinar where we actually speak to one of our graduates and get their perspective on what's been going on. So if you have any questions for Michael, please feel free to post them in the chat. We will try and get as many answers as possible towards the end of the interview. So this is an ask anything, ask about Michael's experience, how he went about searching for a job, and just put them in the chat, and I'll try and get through as many as possible. But I think to kick off this interview, I think the first question that I'd like to ask Michael is just about your background, really. So what is your background, or, you know, how did you really get into all of this?
Okay, yeah, sure. I studied media informatics in Munich with human-computer interaction, and this was really an interesting field as it taught me the basics of like computer science and all things about design. Mm-hmm. And it prepares you for broad variety of different jobs in tech, and that's a good thing because I always like to have options. I didn't like to decide early and then only have this one part. And yeah, that was really fun. And after graduating, I was drawn to the design world. It was kind of the logical step for me because that's what I always could do best, what I always liked the most. And I had learned Photoshop by myself during my time in high school, and during the time at university I was able to refine those skills further, and then it was kind of logical to me that I would go to design after that. So I have like 4 years of experience in graphic design.
Okay. And so when did you start to think about UI design, or when did the word like pop up on the horizon?
That was almost a year ago. I think it was in like May 2019, when I just felt that what I was doing wasn't fulfilling anymore. It was getting kind of repetitive and not that fun. So I looked at other options, and I came across a blog post by a CareerFoundry graduate on LinkedIn. And I found it interesting because he had the same background. He was also a graphic designer who switched to UI design, and the title was something like why I switched from graphic design to UI design, something like that. And yeah, I clicked on it, I read it, and I could relate 100% to everything he said. And this also reminded me that there is this field, UX UI, that I kind of knew from university, but yeah, it reminded me that this was a fun field. And yeah, he described the typical tasks of a graphic designer, compared it to the typical tasks of a UI designer, and then said why this is more fun to him. And yeah, as I said, I could totally relate with that. And
related to what he was saying, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So then how was it going from this idea, okay, I found UI design, it looks like an interesting field. What was the process of you going from then to thinking, okay, I want to do some kind of program or course in this subject?
Yeah, in this blog post, he also mentioned that he did a UI design bootcamp at CareerFoundry and put the link there and described everything. So that was my first step, to click on that link and check out CareerFoundry's website, all the courses they have. And yeah, the idea of participating in that course grew more and more over a few weeks. And For me, what was really important was that you would end up after the course with a really professional portfolio, which is necessary to get any job in design. And I didn't have that, and I wanted to have that, and that's why I thought it would be a good idea. It looks in the beginning, to be honest, like a very huge investment if you gotta pay for it yourself. And after weighing the pros and cons for a few weeks, I was like convinced that investing in my education and in my future would pay off in the long run. So then I decided to go for it in July last year.
July 2019.
Yeah.
What was your experience when you just started off at the program? When you kind of onboarded, what was your kind of first impressions? Maybe you could tell some of the people who are listening.
It was really cool because in the beginning you might feel like you're alone in this, but you notice pretty soon that this is not the case, because there's a huge Slack community and there's welcome channels. And on the day of your program start, you see tons of messages like, "Hey, I'm starting today the UI course. I'm from any city around the world," basically. And then you see, okay, I have classmates, that's cool. And then also you have your tutor and your mentor that get assigned to you, and they reach out immediately to you and ask about your background. And yeah, it makes you feel really welcome.
And what was the interactions with your mentor like? Was it how did you first get to that first contact with your mentor?
I think we first texted on the platform in this messenger thing, and then pretty soon after starting the course, you have to schedule your introduction call, and it's basically a video call with your mentor. And yeah, that's also in the beginning kind of weird to like video call with somebody you don't know, and now he should help you get a new job. My mentor was from Jordan, which is also very interesting because I didn't know anybody from Jordan up to this point. Yeah, but he has, I think, over 15 years of professional experience, and yeah, I could really see that whenever we talked, it helped me a lot.
Well, we are a truly global network here at CareerFoundry. We have mentors and tutors based in all time zones.
Yeah.
Let's shift the interview over now, because obviously we're currently in the middle of the corona crisis and the pandemic. It's what everyone's talking about. And let's talk about how you managed to find a job during the pandemic. How did you go about the job search? Because it's a very stressful time for many people. And how did you go about that?
So first, my situation in the beginning of this year was I graduated in early January from the course. I had my certificate, I had my portfolio. I was really confident in my package, my application package. You also have the CareerFoundry job guarantee that basically says if you can't land a job within 6 months after you finish the course, then you get your money back, which is kind of reassuring also, and makes you confident that CareerFoundry also has trust in their students. And that was also the time when I left my old job. And as I said, I was really confident about finding something very soon. And then the virus stepped on the field and slowed everything down. In the beginning, I wasn't too worried, because in the very beginning, it was something that happened very far away. But all of a sudden it was here, and it got more serious, and countries went into lockdowns, and everybody was working from home. And that's when I realized this would probably affect my job search. What I did was I treated my job hunt as if it was a job. So I got up in the morning at a regular time, not at 11 or some crazy shit. I worked on my application package. I searched for jobs basically from probably, I think, 9 a.m. to 2 or 3 p.m. And the job guarantee, you're only eligible if you apply to 5 jobs a week. So I was thinking, let's treat the week like a regular work week. Monday to Friday, I send 1 application per day. And that's basically how I structured my day. And this helped me a lot to feel productive, be productive, stay motivated, and make sure that I'm eligible for the job guarantee. Because you don't want to actually end up without a job after 6 months, but just in case, you want to make sure you're eligible for the job guarantee.
Sure. And that's something also that our career services team here do. We do practice, staying in your rhythm. That helps with motivation, also doing some kind of sports and stuff. But I think you did exactly the right thing by, keeping that daily kind of schedule almost and starting the day very positive.
There's also the job prep course, which helped a lot because you get assigned a new mentor, basically, which is an expert in HR. Exactly. And I did that after I was done with my regular course. And what this job prep course is about is basically, it helps you to build your personal brand. So you end up with a professional LinkedIn profile, and your portfolio is polished and everything. And you also have regular video calls with that career specialist. And that also helped a lot to check in regularly with somebody and talk about it. Because it was definitely not easy. I know that it sounds easier than it actually is when I say that the most important thing is to stay motivated. But yeah, you got to figure out what works best for you. And for me, it was structuring my days and have regular check-ins with the career specialist.
And how many jobs did you apply for during this time?
In total, it was 42.
Okay.
And 13 of these 42 remain unanswered up to this day, which is not that satisfying because you want to hear back, at least if they're not interested. You want to hear a no, so you know that you can move on. It's something that's annoying, but it's also part of the game. Then of the remaining 29, I had 22 immediate rejections, meaning I applied and the first thing I heard was, no thanks. And then it's 7 jobs left where I got the invitation to an interview. And it resulted in a total of 9 interviews because for some jobs it involved more than 1 interview. I had 5 phone screenings and 4 video calls.
And how useful was your portfolio, your UI design portfolio, that your kind of key takeaway from the program? How useful was that during the interview? Did you use that?
Yeah, in some interviews we talked about it, and I was asked things like, "What's my favorite project and why?" and things like that. But sometimes we didn't talk about it. But I think it is always the door opener to getting the interview, because obviously you put the link and everything in your application, and they definitely take a look at it because they want to know what you can do. And that's also at my current job. I was told a few weeks in, somebody told me, yeah, we looked at your portfolio and we liked it.
It's also a lot of the feedback that I get. I didn't actually introduce myself at the beginning of this video, actually. Sorry, I'm William. I'm the communication manager here at CareerFoundry. We should have done that at the start. But one thing that we do hear a lot from students is that not only they have this portfolio, but because they built it, they can talk the employer through each stage because they've constructed it on their own. So very, it's just your kind of selling point. It's your key selling point, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. One thing that I found really interesting is I looked at like I kept everything in like a spreadsheet. Like whenever I applied for a job, I wrote down what company, what job, the date I applied, and what's the status. And after everything, when I had my job offer, I looked back at the spreadsheet and then I analyzed it, and I looked at the at the average wait time for a rejection, and it was 17 days, whereas the average wait time for an invitation to an interview was only 4.3 days. So that for me means that if a company is interested, they will reach out very quickly because they're interested, and it doesn't really matter if there's a pandemic or not. They will get back to you quickly if they're interested.
Mm-hmm. So the next question is that once you have that job offer, that kind of like golden ticket into the new into this new job, what would you recommend to those people who are listening, preparing for that new job? So just before you started.
Yeah, definitely do more research about the company and the product, so you can, like, on your first day, start with a lot of questions and be curious, and also stay up to date with everything in the world of UX, UI, read books, read articles, maybe continue to work on portfolio projects, because the portfolio should be like a living thing that you're gonna extend from time to time. It's not like when you finish the course, everything's done and that's it. It's basically just the beginning of your journey. And also make sure to reward yourself because all your hard work paid off. So it's okay to be a little bit lazier than before if you find you have your job offer.
Mm-hmm. And for you, what was the most surprising thing about your first days, weeks on the job in this new role?
For me, it was like how fast time flies when you do something for work that you actually like. Like, it's something that isn't surprising in general, but I never had that feeling in a job. Like, you go there, you work, then it's all of a sudden it's lunchtime, you work some more, and then it's time to go home already. It's really something I was hoping for when I first signed up for the course.
So we've got lots of questions coming in, and we'll try and get through as many as possible.
Okay,
so
sure.
I'm going to do a quick fire of questions, and I'll just see if you can answer them off the cuff. So the first question I've got is from Turkin, and this is actually directed at UX, although you're in UI design. But Turkin asks, what's the process to prepare a UX portfolio with no UX experience, and do you make up your own projects to showcase on your portfolio?
Well, I can only talk about my experience with the UI course, but obviously it involves a lot of UX too, because you can't have the one without the other. Yeah, basically the course is structured in 6 achievements. Well, that's what it was back in my days. I think now you changed it and it's like bigger or something. I read that on the website. But yeah, you get your basic instructions, you work through all the tasks. Like, each achievement has, like, I think 10 tasks. And it's basically one achievement is one project. The first few projects are basically just to get into the whole topic. And then for me, it was like at achievement 3, when you first start working on a portfolio project. And your mentor will always make sure at the end of each achievement that what you did was portfolio ready. And as long as it is not, you will have to iterate your designs and check in again with your mentor. You get a lot of support, so you're not alone. Definitely.
Did you find that the mental feedback was very constructive and very motivating, or how did you feel with the feedback that was given?
Yeah, it was really helpful. Yeah. So it was usually a screen recording where he kind of clicked through my portfolio and talked about it. And in addition to that, you also have a video call afterwards, after you finish each achievement. Oops, sorry.
No worries.
Yeah.
We've got another question from Lisa. Lisa asks, how can you get into UI design with no graphic design background, but have an arts background?
I would say that your background doesn't matter too much. There's many people starting the course without any like design background. And I mean, if you have a background in arts, it's already pretty close to design. But in general, you don't need any experience in design, because especially the first achievement is all about learning about the whole thing and the programs you're going to use. And also the basics of design.
Is that the travel app one?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you basically build something that already exists.
Yeah.
Like you get this interface of a travel app, and you should just replicate it.
Just for Lisa, I studied politics before, and I also did the travel app. I did the start the UI design program, and I found it super, got into it super quickly, and I think within 6 weeks, 4 weeks, I did a little bit of a slower pace, but I built a travel app and it looked good. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. We've got a question from Denise. Did you have any live design tests during the interview process? And if so, can you describe them? So any live tests?
During the interview?
Yeah, I suppose like an in-house test.
Yeah, I had one company that invited me to come there. It was the beginning of March, where it was still okay to like go somewhere. They invited me for a whole day to get there so I could get to know the company. And then around noon, I was presented a task that I could work on for the rest of the day. And at the end of the day, I handed over my final results and we talked about it. Okay. That was fun, but obviously in the beginning, before you know what the task actually is, you're always worried. At least that's for me, because you don't know what's coming. You expect something like back in the school days when you feared a test where you had no idea what to write. But it's not going to be like that, because they want somebody to do the job, and it can't be that difficult. It's not impossible. And yeah, it was actually fun. I also had another design challenge where I just got written instructions with an email, and then I had 5 days to work on something and send it back.
And those were stressful 5 days, or it was quite fun? Did you learn? I suppose you always learn new things when you're doing these kind of like tests stuff. You're learning about the industry at the same time.
Yeah, and you have to always do your research about the product and what you're actually designing for. Also about the company itself and the values it presents and all that stuff. It's really interesting.
Okay. We've got another question from, we've got a question from Troy. Do you believe a novice can excel in this career field with basic computer skills?
Yeah, as I said, you don't need any kind of design background. I think if you know how to use and interact with the computer, then that's already really important. And I would say enough also, because you get all the support you need through the course. You get better every time. For example, your tutor, he reviews everything you do, and you have constant feedback from your tutor, and he sees your progress and he mentions it if he can clearly see that you're getting better and stuff like that. So that's very reassuring if you have experienced professionals who constantly motivate you.
We've got another question here. Did you find it difficult to find at least 5 positions to apply for each week? Because you were applying, we have students all over the world, but you were applying in Munich, in Germany. But did you find it difficult to find positions?
I applied not only in Munich, also in other cities in Germany, but yeah, it was not that difficult. Sometimes it was more difficult, and sometimes it was easier. It just depended on the amount of new job postings per day or something like that. Yeah, I browsed LinkedIn for new job postings, Glassdoor, Monster, all of those job boards, but also went directly to companies' websites and looked at their job postings. And if you do what I did and treat your day of job hunting as a regular work day, and you do this for a few hours, then you definitely end up with something you can apply for.
Essentially, you have to be proactive in it. That's one of the things that our career services team say, that you have to be proactive. But you also got the support from the career services team in looking at your own profile, your CV, and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at some other questions which are coming in. Question from Britt. What were the most challenging questions the interviewers asked? Were there any nasty questions that came up or difficult questions?
I can't remember of anything in specific now, but when I first was asked about what's like when he said, let's look at your portfolio and you tell me about your favorite project, I didn't think about that before, so I was kind of doing it spontaneously, and if I had prepared for this question, then I would have performed better, but I always found something to say.
Yeah.
And you also get better every time with video call interviews.
Yeah.
So it's okay if the first time is not that great. You'll get better.
That's good advice. We have got a question from Val. Val says, I've been in graphic design and marketing for 30 years. How different is UI versus all the research and design elements I learned in college? And has the name of a true graphic design and marketing professional just changed? Or how would you go about answering that question?
Well, about the difference of UI design to graphic design is that you always have the user's needs in mind. So in regular graphic design, you design something that should look pretty and that people would like to look at. But in UI design, it has a focus on functionality. So what you design has to make sense. It has no value if you design something that looks beautiful but then is difficult to use. That will make users feel frustrated and turn away from your product. So that's the one big difference, I would say. And that's real.
A question from Laura. What would you say are the top 3 skills a UI designer with only school experience should focus on in order to land a job in that area? So this is from like a kind of like a high school school experience perspective.
The top 3 skills. That's a good question. I would say definitely you should know about the software that is most common, like Sketch or Figma or Adobe XD, all that stuff. So that's really important to know your tools. Then the ability to quickly sketch your ideas and communicate them effectively so that people quickly understand what you think, because sometimes you have a thought in your mind, it makes sense for you, but then you have to explain it to other people. And that can be really hard in the beginning, because in your brain, it makes sense, but then it also has to make sense in other people's brains.
Yeah.
And number 3, well, definitely communication, because it's very important to always talk about your work, to get constant feedback. Because if you design based on assumptions, you will end up frustrated, because, yeah, if you put a lot of work into something and then in the end somebody says, that's not what we wanted, that doesn't make sense, then yeah, it's basically wasted time. So you should be very good at communication and also accepting feedback. Like, this can be really tough for designers.
Yeah, you got to accept feedback.
Yeah.
And also, one of the great things today is that there's so much free. There's so much free materials there. If you look at the all the blog material out there. I mean, even the CareerFoundry blog, where there's loads of UI design information, but also lots of the tools that you use as a UI designer. You can also do free 30-day trials. So even if you're at school and maybe you don't have the biggest budget, you can still dive straight in, because on the internet there's so much free material out there. So you can really start. We've got a question from Daniel. Okay. One question from Daniel. What type of software did you use to develop your UI design portfolio? And did you use any CSS or HTML?
Not at all. I used Sketch for the UI designs. Then I used Keynote on my Mac to create the case study files on PDF. And my first action to create a portfolio was to create an account on Behance, upload all my work there. And then during the job prep course, my mentor said that it would be an awesome idea to have an own website for your portfolio, so not only on Behance. And the good thing was that there's this thing called Adobe Portfolio. And you can basically build your website. I didn't have to do any HTML coding. It's basically just what you see is what you get editor, where you edit your elements, and it automatically synchronizes with your projects on Behance. That's really cool.
Question from Andrew. Outside of coursework at CareerFoundry, did you also make any personal projects, and were they useful to include in your portfolio for the job search process?
So far, I don't have any personal projects that I added. I only have the stuff from the course. But as I already mentioned, it's really important to keep working on it. And I already have a few ideas that I developed also during my course, ideas about projects that I could add in the future. But yeah, for now, I want to focus on my job and then start a new project soon.
Another question from Turkin. Do you have to use lots of technical terms to explain all the designs that you've created to the engineers who you're working with?
Not really. They probably they know what I'm talking about. I don't use any complicated words. The only thing that was kind of new to me was the term wireframe in the beginning, but yeah, you can always refer to those things as drawings, sketches, pictures, and make sure that people will understand. But in general, I would say it's really easy language.
And when you started, this is another question from Lisa, when you started your new position, did you ever experience imposter syndrome because you switched careers? You were a graphic designer before and now you're working as a UI designer. And how did you deal with it if you did experience imposter syndrome?
I think this is something that every designer experiences. It's It's really annoying, but when I started my job, I was already prepared for the situation, and I was confident in my skills, and that's why I blocked out imposter syndrome from my head, because also the CareerFoundry course prepares you for that. I think there was an is it like in the orientation course or something, or in the very beginning of the course, where these kinds of things get addressed, and you get all the resources you need to fight the imposter syndrome.
Get rid of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Question from Laura. How did you go about filtering out applications and deciding which ones to apply for? So which ones to choose?
I didn't get that last question. Can you repeat it?
So when you were applying for positions, how did you go about filtering out jobs which you thought were good, which ones were bad? How did you go? What was that kind of process?
It's incredibly important to do research about the company and the company culture and how they present themselves. And you got to make sure that it's a fit with your personal values, what you expect from an employer. I mean, you can probably only tell if it's a fit when you're there and working there and experience it yourself, but you can already do a lot of work prior to that, and also ask a lot of questions during the interview to kind of understand the company culture. And also they list like, oh sorry, they list the responsibilities of this position, and yeah, that's another thing you definitely have to look at. If there's something that you don't want to do, or you think like, oh, that shouldn't be the work of a UI designer, then that's probably not for you.
And how long did it take you to find a job after graduating from the CareerFoundry UI design program?
I think 3 months. I sent my first application in early January, and I got my job offer at the end of March. So yeah, 3 months.
And another question that's come in is, how do you want to continue? Because we're all growing and professionally developing all the time. How do you want to continue developing your skills as a UI designer once you've reached this level?
Well, I think my skills kind of develop automatically as I am working every day. But right now, for example, I'm working on the UI for desktop software, which is completely different to what you learn in the course, because the course is focused on mobile designs, and the type of interaction is completely different. You interact with keyboard and mouse, and on mobile, obviously, with your fingers. And so you gotta adapt to new environments constantly and expand your skill set, and it automatically trains your skills.
Do you miss anything about being a graphic designer?
Not really, because I have the elements that were fun, and I added some more elements that are even more fun. So yeah, get the best of both worlds.
Another question that's come in is, were you aware of what kind of UI role you wanted once you graduated, like a single designer versus an established design team?
Yeah, this is something that you work through with your career specialist in the job prep course. You get encouraged to really think about what you want, and the job prep course also has tasks where you should submit something in written form. It has a lot to do with self-reflection and getting to know yourself and what you expect from a possible employer, and this really helps. So I knew what kind of company I wanted to get in, and yeah.
With the CareerFoundry UI design program that we offer, it is flexibly paced, but we do recommend a minimum of 15 hours a week. So this question is kind of targeted at that. How did you manage all the coursework and your kind of social life, everything going on? How did you manage to kind of like balance your kind of like work and also the course and everything?
I did the course in addition to a full-time job, which meant that I was working on my tasks in the evenings and also on the weekends. And for me, it was really good to have that kind of graphic design background, because that meant that I could move quicker through the first 2 achievements, I think. And then I was ahead of my time, and then it was okay to like take a few days off and continue later, because if you're ahead, that's always better. But it's not too hard. It's not like you are only working and have no time for the basics, like meeting friends or something like that. It works.
How many hours do you think you were devoting to study a week?
A week, I'd say, well, on the weekend, it was more like a full day. So let's say 20, 25 hours probably in a whole week. Yeah.
We've got a question from Lauren here. We like these kind of questions. Do you think CareerFoundry was helpful, or could you have learned on your own or elsewhere?
It was definitely helpful. And I think without CareerFoundry, I wouldn't have my portfolio, because building a professional portfolio is really a hard thing to do if you have no experience in that field. And without CareerFoundry, I would have had no feedback from tutor and mentor, which was really vital.
The support that we offer, that's one of our main things, the tutor mentor model, but also for peace of mind, as we were talking about earlier, the job guarantee. So you always know that that's in the back of your mind, that you've got that guarantee. But also the career services team, and there's our student body in the Slack community, all around the world. There is a lot of support out there whilst you're doing the course. You're not alone as an island. Another question, this kind of like links on, but was networking with other designers a big part of your job search? Did you network?
Yes, this is also something you learn about in the job prep course, how important it is to network. And you actually get forced to network in one of the tasks, which says like, reach out to 3 design professionals in your area and submit your screenshots. So it's really important, because the bigger your network is, the more likely it is that opportunities come to you without you doing anything. For example, I also had 3 recruiters reaching out to me on LinkedIn, and those were easy applications because they came to me. I knew they were already interested, so I just sent them my application, and that shows how important it is to network.
Another question that's come in is, I suppose this is slightly polemic or just out of interest, but for how long will UX or UI design be an in-demand career in your opinion?
It's really an interesting field. I'm not sure if I got the question correctly. Sorry.
How long will UI design be, I suppose, future-proof?
I think for a very long time, because as long as you have digital products, you also have to think about how to use them. And it's really important for a product to have a good user experience. And yeah, companies understand that, and that's why I think this will continue as long as you have digital products.
Mm-hmm. A question from Tal: are you mostly happy with the job that you found, with the company that you found, or did you have to make any compromises or readjust your career path or goals?
I'm really happy with where I ended up now. It's a fit regarding the company culture, as I mentioned. I probably adjusted in that way that I wasn't expecting to design desktop software because I was prepared for mobile designs, but I see it as a challenge and a chance to expand my skill set. So yeah, I'm really happy right now.
Mm-hmm. Are any of your colleagues watching tonight?
I don't think so. Maybe some of them saw it on LinkedIn, but I didn't like advertise it that loudly.
So you were talking about deciding which company to work for. So whether it also relates to kind of your own goals, your own beliefs. Do you think that's a really important part of the job search? Trying to find that company that also suits you.
Yeah, that's really important because ideally you want to have a job where you spend a few years, and work is a big part of everybody's day. So why not make it fun and enjoyable? That's my approach to it.
That is a good point to say, because I think the questions are slowly winding down.
Okay.
I think we can also start to slowly wrap up. Michael, thank you very much for taking the time out of your evening. Thank you for doing the interview. It was very insightful. I hope that everybody who was listening also gained something from that. For those of you who are interested in UI design, don't dive out of the interview straight away, because after the interview, you will be taken to a booking screen where you can book a call with one of our career advisors. They're on hand to give you more information about the industry, talk about the UI design role and your suitability for potentially doing one of the programs, so you can book a call with them. There will also be a follow-up mail a bit later, and we will be sharing links, and you can see the recording again. So thank you, Michael, again. This was my first webinar. I think Michael's also first webinar. Apologies for anything about that. We look forward to seeing you next time, and we do have lots of webinars coming up which will look at UX design, web development, and also some data analytics, because we offer different career change programs. So yeah, thank you for attending, and yeah, see you next time.
See ya. Bye.